Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Everyone's familiar with the concept that you get pulled over by a police officer, you might get lectured along with whatever the police officer is going to hand you by way of a ticket. And that lecture, of course, always comes from a place of, look, I'm in a position of authority, I know the law, I actually represent the law, and you really need to X, Y, Z, right? You really need to do something differently, okay? And so there's something ironic when a police officer gets in trouble in such a way that you want to look at them and go, oh, now how do you feel when it happens to you? But a story out of Texas sent to me by a couple people does just that, raises this point. Maria Rush wrote the story for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. A deputy made illegal arrests for months and his department hid it, according to a Texas lawsuit. And the reason his arrests were illegal is that he technically wasn't licensed to be a police officer. Several Texas officials are named in a lawsuit that accuses a deputy of operating without a peace officer license and making dozens of unlawful arrests and citations for months in 2019, according to the lawsuit. Delta County officials helped cover up the deputy's lack of a valid license. So to be a peace officer in Texas, you need a peace officer license. Do you have your license? May I see it? Zach Williamson was hired as a sheriff's deputy in September 2019, but according to the lawsuit filed in October 2021, his license had expired. During September, October, and November of that year, he conducted traffic stops, handed out citations, and arrested people without a valid license to do so, according to the lawsuit. Former Delta County Sheriff Ricky Smith, along with the current Sheriff Charla Singleton, County Attorney Jay Garrett, and County Judge Jason Murray are all named as defendants in the lawsuit. Attorneys for the defendants did not immediately respond to a request for comment, but in court, Delta County officials said all of the alleged acts or omissions were made in good faith and were objectively reasonable. So next time a police officer pulls you over and says, here's what you're doing, you have to say, I'm sorry, my alleged acts or omissions were made in good faith and were objectively reasonable. Go away. Do you think that'll fly? And nothing was done maliciously, intentionally, with callous or deliberate indifference, knowingly, negligently, or with any other degree of culpability, according to news reports. So they say they didn't do it on purpose. Does that make it right? The lawsuit was filed in connection with an arrest made by Williamson back in 2019 when he drove to the front of a Texas home where a man, who's the plaintiff in the lawsuit, was parking in his driveway. Why did you run from me? Williamson shouted at the man, who insisted he did not attempt to run and had not noticed any police lights. According to the lawsuit, Williamson aggressively put the man in a shoulder lock and slammed him to the ground, where he then put him in a chokehold. Williamson then arrested the man on suspicion of driving while intoxicated, despite not conducting a breathalyzer or blood alcohol test, according to the lawsuit. Now, the man said he lost his job because of the arrest, and after he was forced to go to a rehab center for months as a result of this. The same month that this man was arrested, a Texas state trooper discovered that Williamson was operating unlawfully, and the trooper was deeply disturbed. The trooper informed the sheriff in his office, but the sheriff resisted dismissing Williamson's citations and charges, arguing that the fines should be paid first. So let's get the money first, then we'll dismiss the charges. That's the allegation. County Attorney Garrett, when confronted with Williamson's alleged unlawful behavior, said his arrests were akin to a citizen's arrest, the lawsuit states. They were akin to a citizen's arrest. Akin meaning similar or like. They're kind of like a citizen's arrest, except for the man's wearing a uniform, a badge, and a gun, and most likely, is giving off a vibe that he's not just a citizen, but that he's a police officer of some sort, a peace officer. According to the lawsuit, the officials named in the suit then conspired together to utilize whatever tools they could to cover up the negligent hiring of defendant Williamson and the defendant's unlawful arrests and actions. Instead of allowing for the man's release because of Williamson's invalid license, the man was sent to a rehab facility for 3 months, 4 months. The sheriff also changed Williamson's employment records to indicate he began working at the department on November 8th, 2019, instead of in September, the lawsuit says. It wasn't until after the plaintiff spent months in the treatment center and hired a lawyer that he discovered that Williamson was not licensed to arrest him. The discovery of the hidden evidence led to the charges against the plaintiff finally being dropped in August 2021 when the defendants were confronted with this evidence, the lawsuit said. The lawsuit also said that Williamson, acting without a peace officer license, gave out at least 44 unlawful citations, which added up to at least $6,700 in fines and court fees from those unlawfully stopped by the man who was not licensed to stop people. After receiving a valid license in November, the lawsuit said, Williamson was not disciplined or retrained. The lawsuit is a class action filed on behalf of all those who were issued unlawful citations, arrested or detained by Williamson between September 1 and November 5th, 2019. They guesstimate that's about 44 people. Class action is seeking monetary damages as well as a jury trial. And Delta County has a population of about 5,200. It's located about 120 miles northeast of Fort Worth. So the allegation is the department hired somebody who was not licensed to act as a peace officer. The man acted so for a few months. And then after they found that out, they very quickly said, oh, quick, we got to get you licensed. And they got him licensed. And despite the fact they knew there was this window of time within which the man was not licensed but was acting as if he was licensed, the allegation is they said, well, let's just kind of cover this up and be quiet about it because we can make money from all these people who got tickets. And now they're trying to justify it by saying, well, these people deserved what they got even if that guy's not a peace officer. But as you and I both know, if there's a license like that that's required, it's required for a reason. And if you can actually operate without it and there are no ramifications, why license anybody? Why? You don't, no, you just cover it up when you get caught. And so if the license is either expensive or difficult to get, just let your license lapse. And when they catch you, you say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do it maliciously, and then just go get your license. I mean, and getting back to my original statement about the lecture you sometimes get, wouldn't you love to see a judge, not the judge necessarily in this case, but a judge unattached or unaffiliated with this county, lecture this cop and say, how many times have you pulled somebody over and given them a lecture about the law? Oh, you were in a hurry, so you were speeding? Speed limits don't apply to you because you're in a hurry? You rolled through that stop sign because there's nobody there? Stop signs don't apply to you if no one else is around? You can just, they write themselves, right? But the point is that you want to look at this guy and go, so you want to be a peace officer, but you don't bother getting the license, or the license lapsed. You don't bother renewing your license. You don't need a license, but the people you work with need licenses? All the other peace officers in Texas need licenses, but not you? That'd be fun. I've said before, because people jokingly say, Steve, you ought to be a judge. I have no desire to be a judge. If I was nominated, I wouldn't run. If elected, I wouldn't serve. But if you said, Steve, you get to be judge for a day, what type of cases would you have on that day that you talked about on this show? One of them would be this one. I would love to spend about half an hour during sentencing just ripping on the guy. Because you know that he's pulled people over and ripped on them when they gave him excuses about how they didn't maliciously run a red light, how they didn't negligently run a stop sign. You could just do that with nice, long, dramatic pauses. Let the whole courtroom just bathe in silence as the guy sat there, knowing there's nothing he can say in response to this other than I didn't do it on purpose. Oh, boy. As an attorney, I'm licensed to practice law. And by that, I mean that the State Bar of Michigan has actually said Steve Lehto is licensed to practice law in the state of Michigan. And to get that license, I had to qualify and do a bunch of stuff, education, tests, One of the things I have to do every single year is renew my license. And just anecdotally, I've heard that there are people out there who forget to renew their licenses. And the second they're notified by the bar, oh, by the way, you didn't renew your license. And if you don't renew it ASAP and you keep practicing law, you're going to be practicing law without a license. And it's literally just fill out a form and mail them a check, or figuratively speaking, mail them a check. Nowadays, I do it online. You fill out the form online, check a couple boxes, sign it, and send them the money. It's not that hard to do. But the point is, you still have to do it. So if an attorney let his license lapse, practiced law for 5 years, and then they said, hey, your license lapsed 5 years ago, you couldn't go, I didn't do it intentionally. It wasn't malicious. Can I just pay this year's and start practicing law again? Ooh, they'd have a problem with that. I assure you they would. So this is a strange one, but a police officer didn't have his peace officer license, but still acted as a peace officer for a few months. And now there's a lawsuit, class action, on behalf of approximately 44 people who interacted with him during that time. And one of the crazier allegations is that his authorities, the people directly above him, knew that he was operating without a peace officer license, but they kind of didn't want to do anything about it because they'd lose some money in the process. So looks like they're going to lose the money now. At least they could. So it's from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram by Mariah Rush. Deputy made a legal arrest for months, and his department hid it, according to a lawsuit in Texas sent me by both Kevin and T, the initial T. Thank you very much. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. No one asked you to be happy. Get to work.